I'm not even convinced that there was really a misdemeanor that Trump committed. So my fellow panelist here is celebrating that the rule of law has been vindicated and overturned 234 years of American legal tradition. I would challenge her to see if she could possibly articulate how and what crime Trump committed, because so far Alvin Bragg, the DA, has failed to do so. The judge in the case, Judge Merchan, has failed to do so. And they can't do it because Trump didn't commit any of the crimes for which he's been convicted.
Well, let's just ask quickly before I go to Kevin. Francesca, just on that point, what crime did Trump commit?
It was financial crimes. It was white collar crimes. That's exactly what they charged him. He was convicted on.
What was the crime?
It's New York State law.
I understand. What was the crime?
It is
Francesca, actually.
Well, hang on, Mark.
It's got convicted on 34 counts.
Francesca, what was the crime?
Of like cooking the actual book.
What was the crime?
You are not allowed. So you are not allowed to wrap these charges.
That's not quite what happened.
Okay.
To 3 years.
Okay, let's just go before Kevin. I'll be very, very, very patient. We'll come to you.
I'm no expert. Let me just say, I thought you were, by the way.
Campaign finance law is a federal law.
Hang on, Francesca. I want to go to Mark. You're the lawyer. Is anything Francesca just said is that actually the crime? Mark Geragos, let me start with you, just for the legal perspective here. I think two things can be true at the same time. One is that the jury did their job with the evidence placed in front of them, and that the verdict was a correct one from a legal perspective. And the second view, which can run concurrently with this should never have got to court in the first place, and dragging an American president through a criminal court process over something so relatively trivial, driven by apparent political partisanship on the part of the people driving it, was a catastrophic error of judgment and a disaster for the country. Discuss.
Well, look, I don't disagree with you. You can have these two thoughts in your head. If you're going to bring a criminal case against one of the most reviled people in Manhattan and pick a jury in Manhattan and expect them to do anything but convict him, then I know nothing about the criminal law that I've been trying cases about. That was a slam dunk for the prosecution from the get-go. At the same time, I can tell you that it was, to my mind, it was reprehensible that you take a case that is basically misdemeanors and with an expired statute of limitations, and you do the mental gymnastics to contort this into a target crime that's not defined until closing argument and make those into felonies, basically reviving an expired statute of limitation. I could go on and on about the legal nonsense that this is, but I'm not criticizing the jury. I criticize, number one, the prosecutor for bringing this case. Part of what makes the system work is prosecutors have to make hard decisions when to bring a case. Now, the jury did what they were given. That's on the judge. The judge, there's no such thing as directed verdicts in criminal cases. This was basically a directed verdict based on the jury instructions. As to the political, I'll just end it with this. I said 30 years ago when I was defending Susan McDougal, who was Bill Clinton's business partner in the Whitewater case, when she was being prosecuted by then independent counsel Ken Starr, be careful what you wish for, Republicans, because the chickens are going to come home to roost. Sure enough, that's where we are right now.
And those chickens are going to keep coming home to roost. So, Francesca, my question.
So, first off, you can see that the opening of the panel on the Piers Morgan Uncensored show was opened up by a defense lawyer, Mark G. is what he's called. And I don't need to go into all the details in what she explained, but in the end, we know that what has been put forward is that this is misdemeanor crimes essentially that have been targeted towards Trump. And these misdemeanor crimes have been charged as felonies on the state level in New York. As we know, you know me, I've talked about it many times. In New York City, for example, when it comes to the 5 boroughs, they're 70 to 90% left-leaning Democratic. New York City is a very liberal, progressive place. And because of New York City, the state of New York, when it comes to voting, votes overall blue because of New York City. So it was set up this way so that Trump can get a guaranteed conviction against him since he is running on the conservative side, okay, the Republican side, which does not work in New York City. There were 34 charges. With those 34 charges, they were different dates of different transactions that occurred that all led to this one particular crime that he is being charged for. And again, this is a misdemeanor crime, so therefore it has a statute of limitations, which already expired. And as a result of that, this particular legal government representative prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, has took the liberty to try to get it be charged as felonies, which he has been able to do. Okay, a lot of people don't understand what's going on because you essentially can't do that, but they've made a particular circumstance where they're allowing it to be done to Trump and nobody else. And also as a result of that, we know that it's a sham because the judge even told the jury that I don't even need a unanimous decision for the jury, which you always need for a jury case in order to get a conviction. He said as long as there's 4 individuals who say guilty, 4 could be undecided, and essentially 4 could even say no, and I will give a guilty plea. So that's the legal breakdown. We're going to get into the juicy part of the debate.
Question for you is, I understand how joyous you must be feeling that Donald Trump has been convicted because he slept with a porn star 20 years ago and may have shuffled some business papers about it. But why is it good for America that one of your 46 presidents has been treated in such a humiliating manner over something so trivial? Why do you guys not see that this might help him rather than hinder him in the election?
I happen to believe, Piers, that it's good for America when you hold the person who has the highest office in the land to the standards of the American law. And in this case, New York state law, where he committed these crimes. I happen to believe that it is a telltale sign of coming totalitarianism, fascism, skirting of the law when you allow a president to simply do whatever he wants and actually never hold him accountable. Well, look, the reality is this, is that these aren't crimes that were on the books in every single state. These are crimes that are on the books in New York State, as we talked about, all right? And so he knew exactly what he was doing. In fact, this is the most important part, is that David Pecker of the National Enquirer refused to keep on paying his hush money payments because the dude was tired of getting paid back in expired Trump stakes. And he was like, no, I'm not going to do it this time, especially not with a porn star. And so Michael Cohen had to do the payments on behalf of Donald Trump. Michael Cohen already spent 3 years mostly on house arrest, but he was already sentenced to 3 years over this. This is squarely Trump's making. This has nothing to do with his base. It has nothing to do with protecting American democracy like happened on January 6th, according to them. This has to do with Trump making his bronzer-stained bed with a porn star, trying to cover it up, and then getting caught doing it.
And out of interest, before I go to Michael, out of interest, why is Bill Clinton able to have sex with an intern in the Oval Office when he's president and lie to the American people about it on national television? And why is he able to pay off Paula Jones $850,000, 5 times as much as the Trump payment Stormy Daniels, to get rid of a sexual harassment claim, again, while he's president? And he has no criminal court recourse for that. Why is that deemed to be better than what happened with Trump and Stormy?
I don't think anyone is making that case, Piers.
I'm asking you, what's the difference? What's the difference?
Or any predator. The difference...
He's not making a case. He's asking you to speak upon the question that he's asking. It's not a case being made. He's asking you a question. He's a host asking questions to you, who's a guest.
Yeah, that he didn't cook the books financially using his own, using back channels in order to pay...
So paying somebody off who says you sexually harassed her, paying nearly $1 million while you're the president of the United States, and then having sex with an intern in the Oval Office and lying about it, that's fine because he's a Democrat.
Piers, only
Francesca?
the leftists in your mind are making that argument.
Sorry?
I said only the Democrats and the leftist mob in your mind are making that argument that you're opposing to it. I will say this about Stormy Daniels. I think it's incredible that she accepted $130,000.
The leftist in his mind, he's not saying that this is what leftists are saying. He's asking a question on why is Bill Clinton able to get away with this and we don't do anything about it, but Donald Trump is not. That's what he's asking. That's what he's saying. He's not saying leftists anything. This woman is showing that she's pretty...
$1,000 from Michael Cohen, because honestly, if I had the misfortune of sleeping with Donald Trump, no matter what the circumstances, let's say I had mad cow and then I did DMT on an empty stomach. If I had the misfortune of sleeping with Donald Trump, there is no amount of money you could pay me to keep quiet about it, because I would never tell a single soul. I would fake my own death and move to the Galapagos and pretend to be a bird.
I mean, I would say it's very unlikely you would ever get the offer, but you do look quite like Karen McDougal, funny enough.
Oh, so I'm not cute enough to
No, I just said you are. I think you're very much in the compliment. Yes. Yeah, it was a compliment. Go to Michael. Michael, look.
Oh my gosh, this woman, she didn't even understand the joke. It wasn't a diss. And then she gloats with this ridiculous smile.
I do think there's a ridiculous double standard here that will come back and bite the Democrats. For the reasons that Mark Geragos said about historically, you've seen this coming a mile off, where both parties starting to ratchet up this concept of kind of going after each other's leaders in criminal courts. I mean, you see this normally in banana republics, not in the United States of America. And it really does worry me as someone who loves America and loves Americans, what this is leading to. Because if all that happens in each term of office is one party trying to incarcerate the other's leader, I don't know where that leaves America in a few years' time.
Well, this will only come back to bite Democrats if they lose their grip on power, and obviously they don't think that they will. This is why President Biden the other day, when he was walking out of a press briefing, was asked, Mr. President, Donald Trump says that you are imprisoning him because he's your political rival. What do you say to that charge?
Well, I'll still be there. We have the clip. Let's play the clip.
President, can you tell us, Donald Trump refers to himself as a political prisoner and blames you directly. What's your response to that, sir?
No response.
Do you think the conviction will have an impact on the campaign?
I mean, it looked like Jack Nicholson in The Shining at the end of that. But yeah, I mean, Michael, but to pick up your point there, that's the clip you're referring to.
Yes, and it's pretty clear this is not a man who thinks that he has to be accountable to the American people. When you look at the federal charge against Trump, there was a poll that came out when that charge was brought that showed 62% of Americans think that it's primarily politically motivated. They just don't seem to care. And so this has been a ratcheting up, as we've all noted on the panel, of trends that have been built up for some years now. Some would say going back to Richard Nixon, but certainly in the early Trump campaign, the Democrats tried to stop him from being president by spying on him and cooking up fake intelligence, ironically enough, with Russia. And that didn't work. Then they tried to throw him out by impeaching him twice. That didn't work. Then they tried to kick him out by rigging the election and changing all the voter rules, in some cases in contravention of state constitutions leading up to that election. That did get him out of office, and he did leave office, but then he didn't go away. He kept running again. So then they indicted him 4 times. Now they've convicted him. They're going to threaten to throw him in prison. Pretty soon they're going to threaten to send him to St. Helena. But this has absolutely nothing to do with the law. As was noted earlier, at most you're talking about a misdemeanor that would have already expired under the statute of limitations. I'm not even convinced that there was really a misdemeanor that Trump committed. So my fellow panelist here is celebrating that the rule of law has been vindicated and overturned 234 years of American legal tradition. I would challenge her to see if she could possibly articulate how and what crime Trump committed, because so far Alvin Bragg, the DA, has failed to do so. The judge in the case, Judge Merchan, has failed to do so, and they can't do it because Trump didn't commit any of the crimes for which he's been convicted.
Well, let's just ask quickly before I go to Kevin. Francesca, just on that point, what crime did Trump commit?
It was financial crimes. It was white collar crimes. That's exactly
Which one?
What? Explain. You're stuttering.
he charged him. He was convicted on.
What?
What was the crime?
It's New York State
What was the crime?
law.
I understand. What was the crime?
It's New York state law. What? Hello, what?
Francesca, actually,
What are you talking
I
about?
don't even like it. It is
Huh?
Hang on, Mark.
got convicted on 34 counts
Francesca,
Of what?
of like cooking the actual book.
what was the crime?
You are not allowed. So you are not allowed own financial, like your own money to pay off somebody. And then he logged it as something different. He logged it as just a regular payment, but he was actually paying off his porn star to keep quiet, which if he hadn't been running for president would not have mattered, but he was. And so it impacted campaign finance laws in New York State. Okay, that is what Juan Merchan just oversaw this. And these charges.
That's not quite what happened.
Okay.
To 3 years.
Okay, let's just go before Kevin. I'll be very, very, very patient. We'll come to you.
Look, I'm no expert. Let me just say, hang on.
You are no expert. That's why just campaign finance. Federal law.
Hang on,
no.
Francesca. I want to go to Mark. You're the lawyer. Is anything Francesca just said, is that actually the crime?
look, let me just say, I like Francesca a lot. And we probably agree on 80% of our worldviews. However, Francesca, the way you just described it, call me afterwards and I'll educate you, because that's not what happened. There was no theory that was given to the jurors. The jurors were told it could have been campaign finance, it could have been tax, it could have been false books. They were told that they didn't have to specify, or specifically told they did not have to agree unanimously. That's what irks me. Lifelong Democrat, no fan of Trump, never voted for Trump, never will. But I will tell you, as somebody who has spent his entire career kind of taking on unpopular causes and holding the government accountable, I have to tell you, I do that for a reason. And the reason is this kind of shenanigans, and that's the best light I can spin it on, in the criminal courts, has no place in a federal election. The campaign finance laws were federal, not state, and the state laws have nothing.
Okay, I want to go to Kevin. Been waiting very patiently. Kevin, you are a very successful businessman, as Trump has obviously been in his career too. Do you think, in all honesty, if you were caught up in something like this, and I'm not for a moment suggesting you would want to have a one-night stand with Stormy Daniels, but if you went down this road and ran for office, or not run for office, if you just ran for, say, to be CEO of a company.
So as we can see, it's pretty obvious what's going on. And the take that the young lady, Francesca, her viewpoint on the overall cases, she doesn't really even understand the underlying implications in which Trump is being charged for. And most Democrats or people on the left, or people who are apolitical and just hate Trump, they don't even care. They don't care. All they know is orange man bad, and he's getting arrested. He's getting charged. Of course he's guilty. Why? Because I don't like him. That's all people care about. Okay, being charged with 34 felonies for the same charge, first of all, is ridiculous. It's one crime. 34 different accounting dates and receipts that were created, invoices that correlate with this one charge. That's why they did it that way. Ridiculous. Okay, it's a misdemeanor crime to falsify business records, if that is even what he did. And the statute of limitations has run out on that. Okay, that is not a campaign finance law. Okay, if you wanted to charge him with a campaign finance against law in which he violated, this would have to be done by the federal government, not a New York State prosecutor. The federal government would have to take out charges. Okay, and then campaign law charges that would be taken out with him would not be business law practices that he did. It would be campaign finance practices that he did that were incorrect. So nothing about this is even coherent that Trump is being currently charged for. Francesca is a prime example of the fact that nobody cares on the left. They don't care. They just want to see Trump be indicted. They want to see him go down. The lawyer spoke, knows what's going on. He gave a great breakdown. Francesca has no idea what's going on, completely deluded. She's the epitome of the left. And Piers, who is somewhat left on many issues, and then he's pretty right on other issues, has even said that this is absolutely disastrous what's going on in America, a country that he absolutely loves. We'll get into another clip or two, and we will close out with the statements.
Do you think it would ever have led to a criminal case? Because the argument is that a regular business guy who's not actually running for the presidency would be treated very differently, and therefore the law has not been seen to be fairly applied here.
I think half the country in the U.S. believes this is politically motivated, which is not a good thing. It's having more impact on the state of New York, which is seen as unstable. Whether the case has flaws in it or not will be solved for in the appellate system. So most people assume, because of the importance of the situation, that it will go through the appellate system as quickly as possible, if necessary, to the Supreme Court. In the end of the day, these things balance themselves. The damage done to New York started back in the other litigation around real estate. Quietly, large projects, those are over $1 billion, are not being started in New York currently. People are waiting until things stabilize. And I've moved projects out of New York to places like Oklahoma, North Dakota, West Virginia, Montana, Pennsylvania, much more stable environments. It's too difficult to work in that unstable environment. And the real problem is you can't raise institutional capital right now. The capital from around the world thinks New York's a little off kilter. There's something else to consider about Alvin Bragg, which I think history will prove to be correct. You've got to remember, Donald Trump only 24 months ago, in the middle of the first term of Biden, did not have control of his party. About a third of them were rebelling, if you want to use that word, because they were concerned about the controversy around Trump and they were looking for new leadership. And he was challenged, but something happened that changed everything. And this is the law of unintended consequences. Alvin Bragg started charging Trump. And immediately the entire Republican Party coalesced behind him almost in 48 hours. Of course, the country bifurcated into this being a political witch hunt using lawfare, as a tool, and we're still debating that. But here's what's really interesting. If Trump becomes president, I think he has a big debt to Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg is the kingmaker.
Yeah.
He made Trump president by polarizing the country so much and motivating the base so much that in the last 42 hours, Trump has passed $60 million in fundraising. That's an all-time record for him. So what's happening here is this unusual time, and I understand that you may not like that as an unintended consequence if you're Alvin Bragg, but I think history will show he made Donald Trump president one more time. And that's just the way it is.
You know what? I completely agree. I think it's one of the most willful, I'll come to Francesca's response, it seems to be one of the most willfully stupid acts of self-harm I've seen any political party commit. You had Trump right on his knees, done. And you've revived the rotting political corpse of this guy, and you've now got him roaring back to the White House. And the only thing, as Mitt Romney, of all people who hates Trump, and represents absolutely the most moderate part of the Republican Party, when even he says Democrats think they can put out a Trump fire with oxygen, it's political malpractice. He's right, because the only...
Even Kevin O'Leary has given a point that not only is this a witch hunt of a target towards Trump, also what this has done to New York and New York City as an over-encompassing viewpoint with business and how the perspective is on New York as a result of this case has caused a lot of harm. Other business people are now looking at this like, why would I do business in New York? And I saw this very early. I saw this 7-8 years ago that New York was not a place to do business. It's not a place for me as an individual to actually get to the next level, so to speak, if I'm taking large but incremental steps upward towards the top of the chain of self-success. What it is it's a disparity where there's no middle class, there's the working class, and then there's the elites. and there's no gap being bridged in between there, and they don't allow you to. So right now, they're seeing that even the elites are not liking what's going on in New York. So essentially, business will move out. The migrants are flooding in. It's a disaster. Okay, they're prosecuting their own native people for political reasons. It's absolutely disastrous. We'll watch a few more clips of this young lady go berserk. And without further ado, click my next video if you enjoy this. I'm Mr. Rembrandt.
Porn star, all this stuff is really not what G7 countries do to their leaders.
I completely agree. This is Francesca. I just don't get. We see you're laughing, but Mitt Romney, for Mitt Romney to come down so squarely on the side of Trump.
I do want to just say, look, so the crimes were falsifying business records. Now, the reason I didn't know that before is because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not the journalist who is anchoring this entire show, who should have told you that it was falsifying business records. Now,
and because those aren't felonies.
Most Americans don't care about falsifying business records. I agree with Kevin and I agree with Piers. However, I will say this. Most Americans also are very much go on gut. And they don't like that a candidate is now a convicted felon. But moreover, this candidate is someone who, and it is not the crime, however we know, cheated on his pregnant wife with a porn star in a hotel in Lake Tahoe and then bragged about it and then tried to pay her to shut up and also paid another Playboy bunny to also be quiet about their relationship.
Bill Clinton had sex with an intern.
People, you're going to avoid the only thing you have.
Well, it's not a bad thing to have.
No,
unlike some president at the time.
You know, I don't mean to pick on Francesca too much here, but it's very telling that even the liberals who are going on television to defend this ruling have to Google in the breaks to figure out what the crime was. and even then, I'm sorry to say, misrepresent what the actual supposed crime was. The reason here that this has to take... Oh, excuse me, 1 second, Francesca.
Looks, that's the same thing.
It's not a felony, not a crime, but anyway, that's a point for another time. The reason why even the great
Happy Pride, Michael.
Can't, it's to you as well. The reason that they can't articulate this is because it's not really a crime. That's why they had to up in 234 years of precedent for this. And it gets back to a point that you made earlier, Piers, and that you made, Kevin, which is that Alvin Bragg really overplayed his hand. Sure, he overplayed his hand to some degree, but what else were they going to do? Donald Trump was always going to be the Republican nominee in 2024. A lot of people feel that he was gypped in 2020. He's the biggest guy in the party. It was going to happen. And Trump poses a real threat to the liberal establishment. He's not a Mitt Romney-type Republican. He has different views from the so-called uniparty on things like trade, on things like immigration, on things like foreign policy and war. Trump posed a major threat. That's why they took such extraordinary measures for the last 8 years to take this guy out. They weren't able to do it politically. They weren't even really able to do it at the ballot box. So what's left? The only thing left to do is to try to throw him in prison so that he can't campaign for the election. I agree, it's backfire. But
case, Michael, you know that. It's not even a federal case. Why do you think that it's not a DOJ case? It's not a Biden case. It's not a Merrick Garland thing. It's New York state law. So the idea that this is somehow politically motivated is all Biden said because what you
Biden's DOJ is also prosecuting Donald Trump twice.
Is you groom your audience for fascism and you set them up for a complete takeover of the DOJ.